Alright, hello and welcome back to the Ace Attorney Chronicles. Interesting part for me to put the emphasis, but nonetheless we will be continuing tonight where we left off. It's a day at the fair with murder. We should probably examine here. This thing's been bugging me ever since I noticed it last time. Ah, looks as though somebody dropped something in the tree behind there. Dropped or hid? What's this? Some part of the machine that exploded? Maybe it could have fallen from the platform above in the blast, perhaps. Hey, what's going on there? Oh, nothing. I think I'll hang on to this, just in case. Mysterious contraption. A curious device found almost as it was hidden there deliberately. The Crystal Tower. It's certainly an apt name. It was built to be the focal point of the exhibition, and it definitely is, being so tall with all that glass. I can't imagine a building like this ever being erected in Japan. There are lots of exhibits inside the tower as well, apparently. There's an observation deck, but there's also an art gallery, a zoo, and a museum. But I heard you had to queue for 3 hours just to get through the doors. Well, at the moment, the shattered glass from the failed experiment may well be the biggest draw. And thanks to that accident, the whole tower is shut. Suddenly it's not the Crystal Tower anymore, but the Crystal Glass Shower. Apparently everyone's taking the skies now to look down the disaster area from above instead. But there's a 3-hour queue to go up in a balloon now. Londoners must be very patient people. This platform must have been set up for the experiment, I suppose. Very high up. Oh, looks like the dog needs to be let back in. I'll do that real quick, and I'll grab a drink while I'm doing that as well. Alright, there we go. Alright, this platform's pretty high up. It must have been made specifically for the experiment. About 30 feet above the ground, apparently. That's what the policeman I just spoke to said. I don't really understand feet very well. We don't use them in Japan. Oh, yes, sorry, it's about 9 meters. But soon you'll have been in London for a year, Runo. It's time you got used to our measurements. Yes, well, this thing is so tall, spectators in front would just have seen a wall and nothing else. Well, they probably thought they secured the best spot to watch from, only be disappointed. There's a saying in Japan, the darkest spot is right underneath the lighthouse. I feel like it probably applies here. Let's ask Gina about how she's been so far. It's been a while since her case, after all. It was 8 months ago now I first encountered Gina, in a connection to the case I was first working on. At the time she was living in the East End with a group of other orphans. She's helped all of them survive by pickpocketing, but then she got embroiled in a murder case. I had a lot of time to think in prison. I realized I couldn't go on like I was. The diving weren't working out. Oh, I'm so pleased to hear it, Jeannie. Well done. So you went from being a pickpocket to being a detective? You got it. Good, isn't it? Inspector Lestrade. Sounds like something out of a book, don't you think? Talk about a sea change. And then there's Iris' old man to think about. Iris' father, you mean? Yeah, I promised her, didn't I? I said get all the police forces around the world to pull out all the stops looking for him. Just a small promise then, nothing serious. Oh, Jeannie, you're so sweet. So anyway, that's how I had to go to test for the Scotland Yard. That's how I test the Scotland Yard. Only trouble is I don't read so well, do I? Just a small problem, nothing serious. Oh yeah. That's when Hurley approached Greg Z and asked for help. So the inspector said he'd take full responsibility for Ginny and made her a sort of apprentice. That was very magnanimous of Inspector Gregson and brave. Well, you know Hurley. He enjoys finding ways to make people do what he wants. The great detective likes digging for dirt, in other words. So, the long and short of it is, if you got questions about the case, you can ask Inspector Lestrade. Right then, Inspector. Actually, there's still a big mystery surrounding Gina, isn't there? Ooh, what, Runo, what? Well, 6 months ago, Gina was the defendant in a trial prosecuted by the Reaper. A trial in which she was found not guilty, and yet she's still... Oh, come on. I'm still on about that, are ya? Legend of the Reaper, whatever it's called. Oh, don't half worry, Odo. If I didn't half worry, there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of you left. It's like I told you before, the Reaper's kind of like him upstairs. He knows what I'm like on the inside. I ain't really done nothing wrong. Nothing wrong might be stretching a point a little. What about Mr. Natsume in Japan? He's perfectly fine, isn't he? Well, that is true. Perhaps the Reaper is more discerning than I thought. Exactly, so I ain't worried. I'm totally fine. Yesterday's incident. Oh, it was out of this world. It was. The brainy bloke pulled a bunch of levers on this machine and suddenly started billowing smoke. Then it just went pop. I ain't seen a better experiment air yet. I'm sorry. You saw it, Ginny, with your own eyes? Yeah, of course. Boss in charge here, ain't he? Keeping everything running smooth, I mean. Boss being Inspector Gregson, I suppose. That's gonna take some getting used to. All I have to say is I'm on duty, and I can do whatever I want to. Oh, get this, I was up in one of them flying balloons and it happened, watching it from above. No, you're so lucky, Genie. Maybe I should join Scotland Yard, too. Oh yeah, do it. You know how to put the boss in his blaze already, right, Iris? You'd have no trouble at all. Oh, that's settled. When do I start? No, you can't join Scotland Yard, Iris. We'll see. Anyways, what I don't understand is this. If the machine exploded so spectacularly, how can Professor Bunnybrain still be claiming his experiment was a success? Alright, well, it was a success in a way. It was? How so? Surely after the whole machine blew up, no one could call the experiment a success. Well, like I said, it did sort of work. I mean, yeah, there was a load of smoke and all that, whopping great big bang. Where do you think we found the victim's body, eh? In the crystal tower over there. In the tower. You can see for yourself, can't you? Up there in the scaffolding. Where the glass is broken, you mean? Yeah. The cage, well, the victim got in to start with, really did get beamed through the air or whatever and landed all the way over there. I'm pretty sure it wasn't beamed, it was just sent flying from the explosion. So, you see, it did kind of work, didn't it? What? I don't believe it. I mean, I don't get the ins and outs of it, but anything's possible, right? With science. Oh, I'll tell you what, you can have this. It's a plan of the experiment. They drew up back of the yard. Oh, are you sure? Yeah, go on. I had... bulb off here before, so fair's fair. Yeah, I didn't actually give that to you, did I? Alright, so the cage was in here, but didn't get beamed up here like it was supposed to. Instead, I think it just went flying. Now let's take a closer look at this. Yeah, this doesn't look like there's anything we can examine at the moment. It looks like a... Wait, this is a crossbow! It's not letting me examine it, unfortunately. Ah, there's some sort of lever here. Oh, what the? What is this? It looks like a cross between a bow and a gun. I think it's probably used for the same thing, too. Crossbow. It looks like you wind this around in order to draw the bowstring back to create tension. You must be able to fire arrows with a huge amount of force using this device, then. In fact, I would imagine it's far more accurate and powerful than a Japanese longbow. Oh, I really had no idea what I was picking up when I spotted this at the exhibition grounds. This groove here must be where the arrows are loaded, I suppose. So I was right, it's sort of a bow with an automatic firing mechanism. This would be perfect for someone like me who catches his ear with a bowstring 2 times out of 3. In fact, if I had one of these, maybe I could have beaten Kazuma in the Kyoto archery training. About the investigation. Something Inspector Gregson said before seemed a little strange. For what it's worth, anyway. Investigating's off the cards for all of us. Yeah, naughty old Gregsy ran off after that without explaining himself. Oh, right, that. Boss says no one's allowed to investigate that weird machine what blew up yesterday. Well, that's not fair. We're representing the defendant. In that case, could you at least tell us what you've learned from your investigations? Nah, you're not getting it. We ain't allowed to investigate neither. What did Boss call them again? The Forensic Investigation Team, I think? Anyway, apart from them lot, no one's allowed to lay a finger on the scene. Bit funny, innit? So even Scotland Yard's own detectives aren't allowed to investigate. Yeah, I've never heard of something like that happening before. I could have a gander on the quiet, though, but the boss caught me at it. You probably heard him getting an earful before he came down here, didn't ya? So that's what they were arguing about. It's not bleeding fair. I think you were giving him as much of an earful back as I remember. Yeah, well, sometimes I think it's all them chips will make him so stubborn. You saying something to him, Odo? Go on, see if you can get through to him. He's up on the platform above us, is he? Where the machine that exploded is. We can try, can't we, Bruno? Gregsy will listen to us. Oops. Oh, I've been meaning to ask you for a while now, but what are those funny round blobs floating in the sky? Oh, those are the flying balloons I've been talking about. I want to go up in one so much. I've read about situations like this in a magazine about strange phenomena. Creatures from outer space coming around flying objects to attack Earth. What? I suppose inhabitants of other planets are bound to be interested in the Great Exhibition. Iris, this is happening. It's not, don't worry. I'll explain to you later over a nice cup of tea, Runo. That's where the Cove ended up after his instant kinesis, or whatever they call it. Dead, of course. And yet they're calling the experiment a success. What's a wooden scaffold, then? The cops are, lads. Set that up after the incident happened. To get the body down, I think. I don't know, really. Didn't you help erect the scaffold? Nah, look at duties more mine. Wandering around the exhibition, keeping a lookout for the fun stuff. Mind Gregson doesn't hear you saying that, or he'll give you the boot. It's incredible, though, isn't it? I mean, could the victim really have bridged the gap by some sort of invisible kinesis? Piece of... Oh, look, what's this? A ripped piece of cloth. It's not like any fabric I've ever seen. It's very thick and stiff. It looks extremely durable as well. It's canvas, I think, with some sort of rubber backing. The edges appear to be a bit charred as well. Maybe that means it had something to do with the explosion. Let's make note of it while Ginny's mid-yawn. What's this? Almost like... For some reason, the ground is damaged in the spot. Look, almost as if there was a fire here or something. Yes, feel it closely. There's some scattered ash and burned timbers, too. I suppose there was a big explosion just above here. People probably wouldn't bat an eyelid at a small fire like this would have been. I'm not sure we English are quite that laid back, Runo. I have to examine the stairs to go up, but yeah. These stairs obviously lead to the stage above. We should go up there and investigate the exact spot where the experiment was being conducted. Here we are. The machine itself. 27th October, the Great Exposition Grounds. Exhibition Grounds. Experimentation Stage. So that's it, is it? The machine that blew up. Must have been a magnificent explosion. I've seen my fair share. You've seen like this before, you mean? Of course, Hurley's always doing experiments that end in a bang. In fact, his own words, explosions are the very essence of chemistry. That might explain the smell of burning that frequently comes wafting up the stairs. One time he made something explode with such force it took the roof off the building. I wish you'd been there to see it, Runo. It's hard to get too excited about that, given I now live in the roof. Anyway, that's enough about that. It's time to investigate. Ah, Inspector Grigson's over there. He seems to be deep in thought about something, whilst eyeing up the machine carefully. Really, he just looks confused to me. That's the microphone. It ripped itself apart magnificently, didn't it? Magnificently and mercilessly. Someone stands in the middle of the machine to be disassembled and then beamed through the air. Yeah, beamed. Not blasted. That's the point. Yeah, that part's crucial, really. Is something like that even possible, though, Iris? Oh, Runa, I'm just a child. How should I know? A child when it suits you, you mean? From what I can tell, I think if we were to pull this lever here... Stop! Don't touch that! Aha! That was practically instantaneous kinesis the way you flew over here. Or Gregsy. Please, your ladyship, I didn't mean to startle you, but I can't let you touch anything up here. Sorry, you can have some of my latest special blend to make up for it. Like a true Brit, he has a cup for tea with him at all times. Ah, wonderful. Stuff really is wonderful. It's just like old times, this is. We're representing Professor Harebrain in court tomorrow, Inspector, so we should be allowed to examine the scene. Ah, listen, Sunshine, even I'm not allowed to touch anything up here. That blasted special dispensation for scientific equipment acts to blame. Emma, it's driving me mad. Oh yeah, that special dispensation. The professor mentioned that too. More red tape's all we need. I don't know what the government thinks it's playing at sometimes. Oh, but we're allowed to just look, aren't we? Eh. Surely that's alright, isn't it, Gregsy? Of course, your ladyship, anything you say, ladyship, please don't get her dainty hands dirty, will ya? Don't worry. We wouldn't dream of touching anything, would we, Runo? She really knows how to get what she wants. Nothing about the boxes. There are all sorts of strange buildings here in the Great Exposition Grounds, aren't there? I seem to remember something similar being in Japan one time. Oh, in your country, Runo. I do wish I could go and see it. I'd present a particularly steely samurai with a present of one of Hurley's stories I'd written, especially, and see if I couldn't get Hurley into a jam against some Baritsu master ninjas. You might not find as many of those sorts of people around as you'd think. Oh, well, that's dull. Oh, but I do know a prosecutor with a top knot that introduced you to. Oh, really? Do you think I could have a picture taken with him, do you? Assuming he's recovered from the trim Cosma gave him a year ago, yes. Considering how badly damaged everything is, Professor Harebrain was lucky to escape unscathed himself, I'd say. We should have a good look around the machine while we can, I think. Touch anything and I'll make sure I'll before I get strung up myself here. Oh, I won't touch a thing, I promise. So please, bear with the thought for your digestion system. Anyway, what do you really think this machine could do you really think, I'm tripping over my words here. Anyway, Inspector, do you really think that this machine could actually disassemble people like the professor claims? He asks, looking totally incredulous. Give it a rest, Sunshine. If we were allowed to examine all this lead scrap metal, maybe we could answer this question. But we can't, can we? Because the annoying rules, you mean? Exactly. The annoying, obstructive, flaming rules. Oh, look at the base of the machine there. Oh yeah, there's a tool of some kind poking through the wire mesh. It's a screwdriver, I think. Oh, isn't it lovely when the handle's in the shape of a capital letter A? Oh, you're right. What's the matter with you? Don't touch anything I said. Touch anything, I'll make sure I kill you before you stroke up myself, I said. Yeah, I understand, sorry. I only touched a teeny weeny bit. But Gregsy, I'm very curious about the screwdriver. Really, very, very curious. Of course, ladyship, you're so clever, ladyship. Fancy spawning something like this. But I'm afraid I can't let you have it. But Runo found it first. I assure you, I'll investigate it thoroughly. This implies to me that we can't get it this early, or it would explain something too important. Earlier than we're supposed to, I mean. That was very mean, I'm afraid. Inspector Gregson's gonna make a very clumsy and embarrassing mistake in that month's installment now. Poor Gregsy. What's that gigantic thing over there? It looks like an enormous water wheel. Oh, it's a Ferris wheel. There'll be people riding inside those little cabins you can see. Why? Well, they rotate nice and slowly, so it's a wonderful way to see the surrounding scenery. Oh, it's turning, but it almost looks completely still. Yes, that's because it's turning so slowly. One complete revolution takes about half an hour. If you're mad enough to go into one, it'd be more fun to whiz around faster, don't you think? Feels though you might have just invented a new sort of ride there, Runo. We can look up here then, yes. The laser itself. That amazing horn-shaped device is pointing towards the crystal tower. I suppose once people are disassembled by the machine, they're supposed to be shot out of that thing to wherever they're going. I don't think we're supposed to shoot anything, Reno. You're set up to beam people to the crystal tower, they'd be reconstructed in their original form. Well, I don't like the look of it. If it was as amazing as it looks, this accident wouldn't have happened in the first place. I suppose that's true, yes. But nothing ever goes according to plan, does it? So those are people carrying balloons dangling silently in the skies over London. I always thought the day would come when humans would discover how to fly, but I never imagined it would involve them being suspended from colorful, floating Tamari handballs. I'm sure it must feel amazing being up there among the clouds. Let's take a ride together, Runo, please. If I'm being perfectly honest, I would like to try it, but without a cast iron guarantee the thing won't plummet to the ground, I'm too scared. Oh, well, in that case, I should tell you that what Hurley said. It is physically impossible for a flying balloon to plummet to the ground, as long as it doesn't explode. Yeah, call me crazy, but I think that exploding part might play on my mind a little. Government policy. Using high voltage electricity to somehow disassemble a person's body and then beam them across the to the crystal tower. It's an extraordinary thing to attempt, especially in public. True, is by far the most unusual of the experiments planned for the exhibition, mind. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised it was allowed. Carrying out something so dangerous with so many spectators present, I mean. The government's doing everything it can to promote new science technology at the moment. They're more worried about being ahead of the game in the onslaught of public safety infringements. If they can be the first to develop some new technology, it makes Britain all that much more powerful in the future, you see. Yeah, I suppose that's true in a way. So the powers that be are placing a heavy emphasis on the scientists' rights at the moment. What sort of rights? To make it so that any theories the brains have remain their legal property, as it were, right down to developing it in a practical idea and even going into production. Which is the infuriating reason us cops aren't allowed to touch this crime scene. Because the new Fallen Special Dispensing for Scientific Equipment Act forbids it. I see now. The only people with permission to investigate here are some from a brand new department at the Yard. The Forensic Investigation Team, it's called. We've been regulated to keep in guard. the investigation team. Any old fool can see that this scrap of metal was a sham to begin with, but just because it says scientific equipment on the paperwork, we can't do a flaming thing with it. Poor Greg Z. He's very... what up? I guess just, heated, I guess, head rather than heated up? Because he is pretty steamed right now, obviously. Special dispensation. Remind me again, what's this new legal act that means we're not allowed to touch the scene here? Are you having it? At me, sunshine, it's the Special Dispensation for the Scientific Equipment Act. Yes, I think Curly mentioned that recently. With a real twinkle in his eyes, I remember. I'm sure he did, ladyship, I'm sure he did. Especially for this great exhibition it was. All scientists have to do is present their ideas and inventions in some suits over in the civil service. And if it gets a rubber stamp, that's a guarantee of rights to maintain over the invention's confidentiality. What does that really mean? Think about it. Think of all the world-changing new inventions on display every day at this exhibition. Well, a good half of them are loaded cobblers, if you ask me. Like a shoe cobbler, a person who creates shoes. Before by shammers. Oh. There's like you. Oh, thanks. Thanks, dick. Oh, I love how absurd some of the inventions here are. It's so much fun. And it might be fun to you, but remember the Force has to be present at every single demonstration. Can you imagine, eh? Hangs. That's what I have to say. Oh, I don't think so. Sounds like my dream job. You'd seem to think otherwise after spending a day guarding all these guys' bogus contraptions. If they're all bogus, how can anyone hope to demonstrate them? There'd be no point. Yeah, well, there is a point, sadly. I'm sorry? Thanks to another of our government's bright ideas. If any theory invention is deemed to show potential, the government hands out a research grant. Scientists get funding, you mean? Exactly, and that's what they're all after. All these people coming near and far and wide to clog up Hyde Park. And who has to keep them all safe, and who has to smile politely and welcome them? Us, the cops, that's who. So you can see why I say it now, can't you? Hang the science, hang it. Maybe I can see your point. Apparently Professor Hairbrain lives and works in Germany now, conducting his research. Yeah, that's right. Came back to Britain especially for the great exhibition, as I understand it. Probably after one of the government's research grants. Actually, we learned something else about the professor earlier today, about his time in further education. Turns out he was at university with someone we both know, Lord Van Zykes. What's that? That's news to me. But if Van Zykes demands a prosecution, then as the accused, the professor's fate is sealed because the Reaper will get him one way or another. Blimey, that man's beyond me. I don't know what goes on in that head of his. Talking of Van Zykes, this morning's paper ran the story of him being attacked. You read that? Oh yes, but Mr. Reaper's completely fine. Nothing to worry about. Yeah, right. Glad to hear it. Still, the Reaper, huh? How long's that business gonna keep up, I wonder? Well, before we do that, let's present him some, the newspaper article he was talking about. Inspector, have you read this paper? Yeah, 2 unwelcome blasts, back to back. This one of the exhibition, and then the Reaper getting attacked. You know, terrible news to wake up to, wasn't it? I tried to pretend I hadn't read it, turn over for another 40 winks. Thanks to that, I was laid up and got roasted from the super. Some mornings are like that, aren't they? Relative positions. As a detective, what do you make of this? Personally speaking, 9 times out of 10 of my clues turn out to be red herrings. So every chance that's totally irrelevant. That's actually a fairly persuasive argument. Mystery of the Reaper. So the victim in this case, the investor, Mr. Asmund. Here's another one of the Reaper's victims, or so I heard. Lord Barak von Zykes is a top-class prosecutor, but even he always can't push the right verdict through. Sometimes justice just can't win. Yeah, I've heard of jurors being bribed and evidence falsified, and that's how the notion of the Reaper of Bailey came about, isn't it? Obviously, Scott and Yard suspected Von Zykes initially. We all assumed he was taking matters into his own hands if he failed to seal the deal in court. Although the man himself denies that charge. Well, we've done a very thorough investigation, and the conclusion we've reached is that Von Zykes is in no way related to the deaths of those people outside the courtroom. True, I mean, even with the ones we know so far, it does seem to be something completely unrelated. I mean, we know, of the people we know that got their comeuppance, the one here we know was, it's most likely either an accident, or, given the nature of this game, it's probably going to have been a murder for some other reason unrelated to Von Zykes. And of course, we know McGilded was also technically unrelated to Von Zykes. There's just no question in my mind. I'd stake my reputation on I would. But if that's true, how do you explain it? All those defendants couldn't have just coincidentally died if nobody killed them. I know that, but I can't explain it. It's a mystery after all, isn't it? That's the whole point of the Reaper. Professor Harebrain mentioned something else. He said that at university, Lord Van Zykes was a totally different person, easygoing and kind. You what, mate? He said that it was after they both graduated, something happened to change the man. Do you have any idea what that was? No clue. Really? Look, I've got my hands full watching over this frustrating crime scene. Why don't you go and make a nuisance of yourself elsewhere, eh? Yeah, he has some idea, but he doesn't want to talk about it. Right. Are you done here, Mr. Naruto? Huh? Isn't it about time you were leaving? Or rather, it is about time you were leaving. There are that lot are here now. That lot? The forensic investigation team. They'll be giving me the heave-ho in a minute too. Oh dear, poor Gregsy. Here, have another cup of my special blend to cheer you up. Glug, glug, glug. Ah, that hit the spot. Yep, it hits every time. Well, at least I've seen the scene with my own eyes. Looks like this is as far as we're going to get with our investigations here, at least. I've been thinking. Hurley might know something, might he? About what? About Mr. Reaper. About what happened to Van Zykes, you mean? Because it sounds like something very significant happened after he graduated from university, and I doubt it was just trouble finding the job market. Something completely changed in his life. Maybe, but I have no idea where to find Mr. Sholmes at the moment. He's in the middle of some big case, isn't he? Here, this is what you need. What's this, some kind of entrance ticket? Madame Tuspells. Is this supposed to mean something to me? You don't know, it's the most popular attraction in London at the moment. It's very close to Baker Street, actually. We can go now if you'd like. No, we don't have time for visiting attractions today, Iris. We have a big trial tomorrow. But that's where Hurley is. What? At this popular London attraction? Yes. How is it you know where he is? Hurley told me, but he told me to keep it a secret from you, Runo. Madame Tuspells. I don't see how it could be related to the case we're investigating here, but then, stranger things have happened. When they happen, Mr. Sholmes is usually at the heart of them. Yeah, I get the sense this is going to be another multi-day trial. Madame Tuspells Museum of Waxworks. Wax Museum. What is this place? Look at all these terrifying scenes, but why are the people so still? Guillotines, ruthless murders. I know what I'll be dreaming about tonight. They're all wax models. They're amazingly realistic, aren't they? What do you think, Bruno? Shocked? Wax models? Ah! I read about dead bodies in wax once in a magazine about strange phenomena. Depending on how corpses are kept after death, parts of them can turn into wax, apparently. It's called a, I don't know how to pronounce that. Stop talking about creepy things like that, Runo. You're scaring me. Anyways, adipocere doesn't form naturally. Oh. Doesn't form readily Only in very specific... what now? I've just remembered something else I read in another magazine about strange phenomena. There's an old lady, maybe a witch, who used to pour molten wax over corpses and put them on display. None of these exhibits here are real. They're all entirely man-made replicas. They can't be. They can't be. Do you really expect me to believe that? Just look at them. Oh. There's no way anybody could make models of people that are this realistic. And they're all such gruesome scenes. Oh, of course. See, there he is. Wait. Oh, what is it? Oh, no. I must be seeing things. Well, I suppose this is the Halloween season. Is this an arm? It looks like an arm, doesn't it? Maybe one of the waxwork models has fallen over. You don't think it could be the work of one of the mass murderers in here, do you? Bruno, stop scaring me! Is it a wax arm or a real one? Come on, you're always pointing out that finger of yours and... Or poke it now and see how it feels. Objection. Big heavy curtain's a very prominent position, isn't it? I have a nasty feeling there's going to be something truly terrifying behind it. Oh yes, that's the famous Two Spells special exhibit. It depicts one of England's most notorious killers. Do you want to pay the extra fee and have a look? Pay more money to be more terrified? Let me think about that for a moment. Here's only a suggestion. Dang, even in the 1900s we can't avoid microtransactions. These models are so well made, I can't tell what's waxwork and what's real human. Or maybe, all the exhibits are real people, and when it's closing time all the visitors have gone home and they suddenly start moving about. Just thinking about it makes me wish it was closing time already and I was on my way home. Is this some infamous murderer? Yes, called Jane the Ripper. Her victims were young women. I knew it. I can tell by the way she's holding that knife. Sure sign of a murderer. Well, yes. What's the matter, Bruno? I've worked it out. I know what she's doing. She's trying to fill that bathtub with blood so she can have a soak in her victim's gore. Not according to the information about the exhibit on the little board here. It doesn't mention anything about the bathtub. Really? I guess he's thinking about Carmilla. Sorry, I don't think it's significant. I still think it has to be there for a reason. Please do not touch the statues. Judging by the fact those are models, I think those are actual ones. Let's take a look here. Is this an example of Western Tsujigiri? I don't know what that is. You know, when an unscrupulous samurai attacks a random passerby to test his sword. And I still don't know. No. But actually, a waxwork samurai would probably be hugely popular. Could you model it, do you think, Runo? Doing that Tsujigiri thing you mentioned. Well, I do have a sword, but I have no intention of testing how sharp it is on a human subject. For now, at least. It's the great detective, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. He has his own wax statue in here? Really? No. Well, he is world famous after all. It's an uncanny resemblance, isn't it? It makes my skin crawl to look at it. I know! But look, Runo, you can kick this early and he doesn't move a muscle. You can't go around kicking the exhibit, Iris. Wait. I knew that was coming. It just moved, I'm sure. Not just a little bit, either. Really? Did it? And look closely. There are beads of sweat on the face of this waxwork model. Shall we move on, Iris? Over there, look, there's a great murder scene to enjoy. Much more appealing. Hold it. My dear fellow, I take a perception to your recall. I guess it doesn't matter. As if you've seen something truly abhorrent. Mr. Sholmes. I knew it. Iris, what possessed you? I strictly forbade your own divulge my temporary waxwork. Mr. Naruto, temporary waxwork, what do you mean? And that can't you now exist. It's a little more restrained. You winded me. But Bruno has something he needs to ask you. A question. I thought you'd probably be getting bored too. So here we are. Well, I can't deny your timing was impeccable. A mere 2 minutes more being stationary like that, and my great brain, upon which all my success has been built, would have been turned to wax. Thank goodness we arrived in time. Indeed, in many ways, the pair of you just saved the world from an unimaginable loss. Oh, Hurley, you do like to talk nonsense, don't you? You could know something, it's true. About Van Zykes and what happened in the past to change him. Now that you're here, let's take our time. How can I be of assistance? Well, you're in luck. I'm suddenly quite taken with the idea of conversing. Oh, well, actually, I'm in quite a hurry. My eyes don't deceive me, I believe. Something's afoot within the walls of this very museum. A most fascinating case, if I'm not mistaken. Really. Moreover, I have a strong suspicions related to the matter in which you've come to me now. How could that be, though? We shall speak again presently, my dear fellow. For now, I must return to my work. Well, back to being a temporary waxwork exhibit. The newspaper, perhaps? Mr. Sholmes, would you have a look at this newspaper? You've been to my room and helped yourself, have you? Let's not turn this into a scandal, shall we? Well, considering I've already read it, one thing immediately does strike me. This paper is old news. What possessed you to show me this? What's done is done. You must distinguish, my dear fellow. Distinguish old from the new. There's some conversations you wish you never started. First of all, what even is this place exactly, Mr. Sholmes? Madame Tuspels. Madame Tuspels came from France 3 years ago, I understand. Since she opened this little waxwork museum last year, it's enjoyed great popularity in London. There are museums like this in Japan too, but these displays are really something else. I mean, they aren't made from actual real people, are they? The extreme realism of these waxwork models, a particular secret of the Tuspels family, they say. They earned renown during the French Revolution for waxworks of victims of the guillotine. That sounds grim. The gruesome scenes were portrayed with such realism in the expressions of the faces of the condemned. Apparently, the sculptors would make the models directly from the corpses, right there at the site of the executions. That really turns my stomach. That's just one of several legends about the Tuspels family. Whether or not there's any truth to it, I couldn't say. But anyway, this museum houses models of famous people from all over the globe. Nevertheless, the most popular area of the museum, and by quite some margin, is the House of Horrors. House of Horrors? Of course, the visitor numbers are dwindling now as a result of the Great Exhibition. People usually flock here to see the exhibits of some of London's most vile criminals at their gruesome work. Naturally, most of the miscreants posted here were already sent to the gallows, so even stiffer now than models of them. Have you heard of poor taste? My dear fellow, the public lives for poor taste. They yearn to be shocked. So the hideous exhibits in here are... There are portrayals of real events that actually took place. Is it just me, or did the temperature in here just seem to drop? Anyway, I advise you not to think too deeply about what you see here. Oh, he's back to being waxwork, is he? What do you mean by temporary waxwork anyways, Mr. Sholmes? Exactly what you see. I'm part of the exhibits here, catching these criminals in the act. Catching? Every half hour, I home in on a different killer in one of the displays and adopt a new pose to ensnare them. When the members of the public come in for a closer look, I offer my hand for them to shake. For a shilling, I'll happily allow them to take a photograph with us. Ah, so does he mean him and the waxwork murderers? But, why, Mr. Sholmes? My dear fellow, isn't it obvious? For the money. He really roared at me there. Very fitting for the House of Horrors. As it stands, I may struggle to pay this month's rent, and I have the ravenous iris to consider. Oh, Hurley, I'm so hungry. If push comes to shove, I'll have to ask you to do your bit, Mr. Odo. What's he threatening to rope me into now? So, with that in mind, how about a photograph? As a special treat, you can have your pick of the murderers and scoundrels in here. The choice is yours. Maybe some other time. Mr. Naruto, ignore me at your peril. Back to being waxwork again. Is it just me, or did his final remark there sound a lot like a curse? Alright, now let's get down to business for why we're here. Well, what would you like to ask me then? Actually, it's, about Lord Van Zykes. Ah, our friend Mr. Reaper. How'd you find him? Well, I trust. Yeah, he was able to fight those guys off, and so I filled Mr. Sholmes in on everything I'd learned about Lord Van Zykes, the Professor Harebrain, and the strange coincidence they had been all at the university together. So I'm wondering what it is that happened to make Von Zykes such a different person. I was sure that you'd know, Hurley. You said there was something going on here in this exhibit hall before. Something was afoot, and you believed it was related to what I wanted to ask you about. Mr. Sholmes? He's suddenly clammed up. Well, seems we reached the unavoidable. Greetings. Greetings. Oh, hello. Where did she appear from? Well, to be fair, Mr. Sholmes has been taking up so much attention, it's pretty easy to lose focus on anything else. What is she wearing? Could she look any more mysterious? I hope you are appreciating my museum. I'm sorry, have we... Mr. Sholmes, do you know the... Oh, not again. My apologies, I am Esmeralda Twispels. This is my museum of waxwork. You're the Madame Twispels? I guess I should try for a French accent, but I'm neither French nor a spellcasting woman, so I'm definitely going to be messing this up pretty badly. Though only 26 years young, I might add. Is that significant somehow? I am Madame in name only. That's a certain je ne sais quoi. Right. Firstly, I must apologize for my waxworks. Or rather, one waxwork in particular. That would be Mr. Sholmes, then. I was led to believe he was a great detective, but he seems, unable to settle. Next time we move from designated exhibit, there will be toil and trouble. Oh yes, so she definitely is a witch. He just fell over. She sounds deadly serious. That's a bit of a problem. How am I supposed to ask Mr. Sholmes about Van Zykes now? Let's not forget what Hurley said before. About something being afoot right here in the museum, I mean. Yeah, I know, but... I want to know what's happening here. Haven't we got enough on our plate already? I guess since the Halloween I could do a stereotypical witch accent or the waxworks. Did you make all these waxworks, Madame Twispels? Let's try which one. Yeah, I did. I'm the third generation of the waxwork artisans, you know. Gosh. It is my grandmother and the tradition in my family. Her fortunes were checkered, living through the tumultuous times of the French revolutions as she did. It was when she acquired the savoir-faire that led to the astonishing life-likeness. All these waxworks really do look as though they're alive. In fact, they look more alive than Hurley. What you see, exhibit here represents the most atrocious of London's criminal past. All the waxworks here were created in the presence of real people in which they are modeled, in the hours immediately following their executions. That is the secret to the extraordinary lifelikeness. That sounds, terrifying. All walks of life have similar challenges, I'm sure. Let's try the other one. To carry out one's trade par excellence, one must go through extraordinary lengths. My exhibits are a reflection of society. I create only that which the public wishes to see. Why couldn't the public have wished for something less horrifying? Do not fear. I'm sorry. This room is the only one in the museum with such a macabre theme. I do hope you'll explore. There are models of famous singers, actors, politicians. Something for every taste, I hope. I think it was Iris who dragged me straight to here, come to think of it. Sorry, perhaps I should have eased you into things. The Great Detective waxwork. What's the situation with, that? Ah, my temporary waxwork model. He approached me some days ago, you see, with a business proposal. Oh, what sort of proposal? My dear madam, what these sparse exhibits need is the addition of a world-famous great detective! Or words to that effect. Naturally, I am well aware that Mr. Sholmes is widely known in London as a talented detective. Yeah, it's great detective, yeah, he's very specific about it. Yes, the creme de la creme, so I was keen to come to some arrangement with them, of course. But sadly, we were unable to agree to terms. Let me guess, someone wanted to charge an exorbitant price for his services? For mere £500, I will dive into your cauldron of wax this very moment. Words to that effect. Mr. Sholmes might have overdone it slightly with the sales pitch. But regrettably, the museum has a shortage of funds at the moment, due to unforeseen circumstances. So he came to the current arrangement instead. Surely he doesn't need to do what he's doing though, does he? I would think not, but he was very insistent. I have a 50-shilling problem that must be resolved by the morning. Or words to that effect. Oh, it's a pawnbroker, what is? He must have something to redeem. Is the consulting detective work not going so well? And something afoot. What was it he mentioned? I wonder, could I ask you something? When, sir? I'm curious, is anything going on in the museum at this moment? Some kind of incident, perhaps? Whoever suggested such a thing to you? Oh, well, it was, your temporary waxwork over there mentioned... Oh, he's disappeared. Wax model's a work of art, not some tawdry object for trade. Ah. There you are. Leaving the exhibit again when you should be working. Do you wish to be melted down? My dear madam, 2 spells, save your reprimands. There are more pressing concerns. Wax can wait. It's our ideas about your current problem we must throw into the melting pot instead. Personally, I would advise you not to involve the police. Why ever not? Just turns as white as a sheet. Because at your disposal, a great detective whose services you may employ for mere 50 shillings. But please beware, I prefer no. I insist upon payment in advance. Oh, very well. Let us see if the great detective is able to live up to his name, shall we? Alright, before I engage my analytical process, I must ask you to clarify something. What, pray, is behind the curtain? That is the 2 spells special exhibit. There is an extra charge to see it. Ah, the special exhibit in the House of Horrors. It must depict a serial killer then, I presume? Would you be so kind as to draw back the curtain, I wonder? No! Oh, there is nothing amiss behind there. Nothing amiss, madam. What about the arm protruding ominously from under the curtain? Ah, I strongly encourage you to allow me to see what lies beyond before the situation worsens. Yes, very well. I will draw back the curtains, but only a second. Number 139? I must confess, I peeked behind the curtain earlier. Juicebell's special exhibit is a very bleak graveyard scene indeed. And yet, somewhat surprisingly, the waxwork killer one would expect is nowhere to be seen. What does strike one, however, is the portly gentleman lying peacefully on his back on the floor. Well, then perhaps Mr. Sholmes, that man on the floor, is the ruthless killer himself? I'm afraid not, my dear fellow. He's perfectly ordinary London gentleman. Not even a waxwork, in fact. Oh, what? As skillfully as these made waxworks are, they're always distinguishable from real humans. So allow me to present my two conclusions. The first is that a sizable business transaction has been taking place in this special exhibit. Why would you say that? And the second is the aforementioned transaction is linked to a serious crime. Ah, she looks as pale as candle wax. I don't understand. So, Madame Tuspels, as you've agreed to my fee, you shall now have the pleasure of seeing the famously great detective and temporary exhibit at work. The Great Deduction. The game is afoot. Waxworks. Fate. To begin with, we must ask ourselves what exactly is afoot here in the museum. The answer revealed by the bundle of banknotes protruding helpfully from her bag. In my estimation, some 200 pounds. That is all my own money. What does this large sum of money reveal? Ah, not as much as the involuntary glance you cast, it would seem. Madame Tuspels. Yes, the answer lies where your eyes now fall. The significance of 200 pounds is revealed by the public notice. That seems off. Waxwork for sale? Your business is at hard times, it would seem. In short, you sold the infamous killer, the centerpiece of your special exhibit, for a sum of 200 pounds. No! Now, let's explore the next curiosity, which we are presented. Who is the portly gentleman stretched out so peacefully on the floor? It would appear the man has suffered a severe shock, the cause of which is clearly known to you. Unfortunately, madam, keeping secrets does not appear to be your forte. Would detail the man's dealt the man such a shocking blow that of course the 200 pounds. It appears you twisted this gentleman around your little finger most effectively. What are you suggesting? He rashly agreed to purchase the waxwork for the sum of 200 pounds. Only when he came to hand the money over, it did occur to him what an exorbitant amount of money he was paying, but the money was no longer in his hands. And the result was seen before us. He collapsed in shock. Yes, the killer in the special exhibit fetched a killer price. We can only pray the gentleman's dreams are not plagued with regret. Sold for cash. Waxwork location. The question arises then is what became of the waxwork when it changed hands? Let us consider the problem for a moment. You cannot possibly. What immediately strikes me about this conundrum is the young man standing over there. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe the neckerchief. Such is worn as a secret sign to fellow. Such is worn by policemen as a secret sign to fellow members of the force that a crime is being perpetrated. Yes, this man's an undercover policeman currently investigating the museum. I know him well, in fact, Sergeant John Clay. What are you talking about? The man's quite a celebrity. He received triple accolades in last year's policing awards. But Next, we turn our attention to the old man sat before him in the particularly unsightly visage. I've been watching close. I've been watching. I've been watching closely, and he hasn't moved a muscle. Almost, in fact, as if he was a waxwork. Oh, but your reaction only confirms my suspicions, madam. I noticed it once, of course. Observe. Telltale sign that instantly proves whether or not this man's a waxwork is the price tag. Threepence? A tragically low price, one might say. Perhaps the going rate for aging waxworks is riddled with cracks. And yet you sold it to a portly gentleman for an exorbitant £200. Sort of plucky behavior that's sure to attract the attention of Scotland Yard. Isn't that so, madam? I do not. Yes, the waxwork you sold has already been seized by the police and remains in their custody as we speak. The old man must be united with his grave in this special exhibit, not a moment too soon. Discovered already. This concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle. I have just stunned you all into silence. You have, Hurley, you have. And you've obviously upset this young lady in the process. Her cauldron looks awfully hot. If I could just bring up 1 point, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, the notorious Naruto 1 point. I'm all ears, my dear fellow. According to deduction, the special exhibit featured this old policeman, so wouldn't that mean he's a particularly ruthless murderer, wouldn't it? The killer policeman, Ottermole. I'm sorry. There's a mysterious series of murders that rattled the capital. Well, only last year. The police rushed to the scene every time, only to find the culprit had disappeared into the ether. And it turned out the culprit was policeman himself, a senior officer by the name of Ottermole. So you mean that's what the sinister-looking old man's supposed to be? Indeed, a particularly grim face, is it not? Unforgettable, in fact, yes, I remember that odious countenance only too well. But is £200 a lot of money for a wax model? It would be enough to afford one of the latest steam carriages, if that puts things in perspective. So it's quite a lot then. Is there anything else you wish to add? Before I melt you down! That bubbling wax is looking more and more ominous. Ah, the smell of that molten wax is starting to worry me. Mr. Sholmes did more or less accuse her to the face, so I think I might have to call on your assistance here, Iris, if that's alright. To make some minor corrections to the great detective's great deductions. Of course, alright, we'll soon set things straight. Well, let's get started then, shall we? Before Madame Two Spells vents her anger. Just what I was waiting to hear, my dear fellow. So, Madame Two Spells, in accordance with our agreement, shall now have the pleasure of seeing this famously great detective and temporary exhibit at work. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. The waxwork's fate. We must ask ourselves exactly what's afoot here in the museum. The answer is revealed by the bundle of banknotes protruding so helpfully from your bag. In my estimation, some £200. That is all my own money. So what does this large sum of money reveal? Ah, not as much as the involuntary glance you cast, it would seem, Madame Dispels. Yes, the answer lies where your eyes now fall. The significance of the £200 revealed by that public notice. She definitely looked in this direction, it's true, but I'm not sure she'd sell any of her waxworks, even for £200. Oh, she must pour her heart and soul into making them, don't you think? Over and above. For me, I wouldn't sell them for anything. Over and above the wax itself. For that much money, I certainly would, but it does sound like that makes me a bad person. Well, anyway, I wonder if the £200 could have some other significance. Let's follow that furtive glance and see if there's anything else that could explain it. Waxwork for sale? Would anyone really buy malls of mass murderers? I think I'd rather have £200 in my pocket. Exactly, you could buy one of those brand new types of steam carriages. That's what I'd spend it on if I had it, no question. Oh, I'd buy all the herbs in the world. This must be another explanation for the money. We just have to keep looking. Seems this well-dressed gentleman's alive after all, just not alive and kicking. And he's not a waxwork model of a mass murderer. I'm not sure I'd pay 200 pounds for him. I don't think the man's up for sale. Well, anyway, it's a silly place to put him. Other museum visitors could easily trip over him. I don't think he was put there on purpose either. Oh, what's this? Note on the wall. What's that new doing pinned to the wall there? Oh yes, let's see here. Dear Madame Two Spells, we've taken the prisoner from this room. The price for his safe return is 200 pounds. Have the money ready by noon on the 23rd of October. What? It's just like the sort of things I find when someone's kidnapped. Yes, it's a ransom note. Exactly.
Take that!
The ransom note. The significance of the 200 pounds is revealed by that ransom note. Quite so, we must congratulate these criminals on their inventiveness, abducting a waxwork. Ah! 200 pounds is no small ransom fee, yet you clearly intend to pay for it. The model in question has special importance, so I put together all the money I have. In summary then, the 200 pounds you have in your handbag is ransom money. Now, let us explore the next curiosity which we are presented. Who is the portly gentleman stretched out so peacefully on the floor? It appears the man suffered a severe shock, the cause of which is clearly known to you. Ah. Unfortunately, madam, keeping secrets does not appear to be your forte. What dealt the man such a shocking blow was, of course, the 200 pounds. Wait, was it really? So if the waxwork was kidnapped, where does that leave us in terms of who the man is? We could just ask him when he comes around. I think the point of this exercise is to understand the beauty of the deduction process, Iris. Yeah, you're right. Hurley's trying so hard, we mustn't let him down. Well, there's little doubt he suffered a shock, that much seems clear. In that case, what's Madame Two Spells trying to hide? Tuss spells? Probably tuss spells. Let's have a look around. Something hidden in her hand. Long hair braid. Madame Tuss Spells has very long hair, doesn't she? Yeah, but you can tell looking at her from the front. You know, it looks rather like a whip, don't you think? Sort of whip that could have floored a gentleman in a single crack. That seems a little far-fetched, even for you, Runo. This is just Madame Two Spells' right hand, isn't it? Yes, it must be. I can clearly see her left hand after all. Oh, but wait a minute. This is a left hand as well, look. Don't say such creepy things, Iris, please. It seems very stiff, too. In fact, it's really hard. You mean, it's made of wax.
Take that!
Is, of course, the waxwork hand. What dealt the man such a shocking blow is, of course, the waxwork hand. Indeed, with a solid waxwork limb, one could deliver a very substantial blow. How? How could you? The hand protruding from the bottom of your cape. It ought to be the right hand, but closer inspection reveals it is, in fact, a left hand. And somewhat masculine as well. In other words, it does not belong to you, madam. It's the hand of a waxwork model. Some of the visitors to my museum can be, troublesome. They meddle with the exhibits and cause damage. So you mean that arm? Yes, this gentleman saw fit to try and remove it as a souvenir. No small keepsake. Like taking a whole branch of a cherry tree when you go to view the blossoms. I'm afraid to teach the man a lesson. She confronted the man and tried to take the arm back. And the result? The scene we see before us. He was knocked unconscious. And a point we may need to visit later, but for the time being, let's have our conclusion. Yes, the killer on the special exhibit has been kidnapped. Solved. Topic 2, the waxwork's location. The question that arises then is what's become of the waxwork that changed hands? Let's consider the problem for a moment. It cannot possibly... What immediately strikes me about this conundrum is the young man standing over there. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his neckerchief. According to Mr. Sholmes, the yellow neckerchief is assigned to the policeman the crime's underway. A way of communicating with his colleagues without revealing his identity, yes. It's a secret that's closely guarded by Scotland Yard that Mr. Sholmes didn't hesitate to give away. Well, uncovering secrets staying true to detective's nature, of course. Right. Anyway, judging from Madame Chispel's reaction to Sholmes' deduction, I think perhaps we might not have identified the man quite correctly. One arm missing. Shoulder stub. What the? The man has a stub sticking out of his shoulder where his arm should be. Ah, what the hell's that then? Right, this isn't a real person at all. His entire arm's been ripped off from the shoulder down. His arm's been, of course. That ties in with what we just found out. Because remember, that's his left arm. His left. Our right when looking forward. Shoulder stub. Who is this fellow? To find the answer, we need only observe his shoulder stub. No such boneless human walks this earth, of that I can assure you. In other words, this man standing here, the young Sergeant John Clay, is in fact defying all odds, a waxwork model. I seem to remember as you concluded he was a real person in the first place, Mr. Sholmes. He has become quite the celebrity in London, being the winner of no less than 3 policing awards last year. I simply had to make a model of the man. Naturally, what other explanation could there be? And this was the detective's... it was this detective's arm that was pulled off by the man on the floor in the special exhibit, wasn't it? Next, we turn our attention to the old man sat before him in the particularly unsightly visage. I'm watching closely, and he hasn't moved a muscle. Almost, in fact, as if he were waxwork. But your reaction only confirms my suspicions, ma'am. I noticed it all at once, of course. Observe. Telltale sign instantly proves whether or not this man is a waxwork is the only price tag. I think that's for the scarf. A killer policeman called Ottermole, was it? Was he well known? There was all over the papers last year, but I can't say I know what he looks like. It's a very low price, though. 3 uppence isn't much money. Only enough for a few measly hours of gas in Mr. Garrett's delightful lodgings, in fact. So, this special killer was taken from a special exhibit, is that it? Waxwork somebody stole from a museum and tried to ransom for 200 pounds. This crusty, old killer policeman Ottermole? Really? Perhaps we should have a good look around again and see if something else crops up. 3 pence is a far cry for 200 pounds, isn't it? For a threepence you could buy and put on display in your room, Runo. I think I'd rather not go to sleep being watched by an old man, if that's all the same to you. This price tag does stand out, though, doesn't it? I mean, you couldn't even buy the helmet on his head for that much money. Don't you think? I wonder what the price tag's really for, then. Yeah. Look at this. The old man's tapping his foot like crazy. He seems to be fast asleep, though. He's not tapping his foot consciously, then? So you mean... Must be a twitch. Never mind that. The point is, waxworks don't tap their feet. Or twitch. He looks at his arm, too. We've seen a scarf like that somewhere else around here, haven't we? I don't believe it. The secret silence of the detectives, no criminal activities underway. Yeah, it's a slightly strange choice of outfit if he's trying to go unnoticed. Ah, he must be a detective disguised as a policeman. Or a detective disguised as a waxwork model of a policeman. Doesn't look like he's clever enough to think of something like that, though. She should try to be a little more polite about him, Iris.
Take that!
Telltale sign instantly proves whether or not this old man is a waxwork is the obvious twitch. Even the most realistic waxworks do not exhibit one. In other words, this splendid old is in fact a genuine member of the Scotland Yard. Slight shift in your choice of adjectives, then. And there you have it. Well, Madam Dispels. Well, you contacted the police and demanded that someone come in the first place. He's clearly fatigued and sound asleep. But then, what's this tag about showing the price of 3 pence? No doubt the price tag of the muffler, which the old Bobby purchased recently at the local market. And I presume you observed the scarf tied around his arm, right? Does that not strike you, Mr. Naruto? Yeah, the secret sign used by detectives show criminal activities underway. Of course, because as you know, there's just been such criminal activity happening here. As you deduced from the very beginning, Detective. So, soon we finally arrive at the truth. The waxwork of the especially ruthless color from the special exhibit has been kidnapped. And Scotland Yard are already investigating. But the model's whereabouts remain a mystery. Thus concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this horrifying puzzle. That's an awful lot just to conclude, yeah, we don't know where it is. Well, then again, that's still an important... Confirming that something is not here can still be just as important as confirming if it is. All sorts of... There's my museum here, men and women, young and old. Sometimes they drop in just for a short time on their way back from the pub. I welcome them all. But if anyone tries to damage my exhibits, I do not take it lightly. Anyway. Your great deduction was even more enchanting than I had been led to believe. It was a pleasure, my dear madam. I'm gratified that you enjoyed the spectacle. And as your rough customer, I have no doubt you'll regain consciousness shortly and return home. What concerns me more is the waxwork from the special display, who was indeed genuinely abducted. Yes, tragically it was. Then I'll ask you to recount the events surrounding the stolen waxwork, in as much detail as possible, if you please. Ah, very well. But after I've told you what I know, I must insist that you return to your work. The talents of a great detective could be put to better use, I feel, but as you wish. The stolen waxwork. Now tell us more about the stolen waxwork, please. It was some days ago now, when I came in one morning, I immediately noticed a waxwork was missing from the special exhibit here. It's your most prominent display, so that's why the curtains were closed. And I found the ransom note in its place. The culprit must have broken in last night and taken it then. So this waxwork that was stolen, it was a model of some horrible criminal, I suppose? A particularly horrible criminal, in fact. A killer who left a more profound scar on society than any other, I would say. The Professor. Not a name I've heard of. So Mr. Naruto, seems the circle is complete. I'm sorry. The Professor case happened around the time I was born, wasn't it? Indeed it did, Iris. 10 years ago. A series of murders that rocked the capital. 10 years ago. Yes, at exactly the time that Barak von Zykes graduated from the university, in fact. What? Surely he's not saying... So the big event that changed Mr. Reaper's life? As you've surmised, it was the Professor case. Who was this Professor, then? It was a series of gruesome murders that had all of London gripped in terror a decade ago. After 5 victims were killed, the man was arrested and put to death. and now he is immortalized here in wax for all Londoners to admire and enjoy. Although, of course, he happens to be absent to the present on account of the abduction, you know. But I don't understand. How is this all related to Lord Van Zykes? You must first understand, my dear fellow, why it is the professor earned such infamy. It was due to the victims he chose, some of Whitehall's finest. What do you mean, Hurley? Those murdered by the professor were some of the highest members of the British aristocracy, members of nobility, even royalty. It sent shockwaves to the country's administration. Members of the, royal family? That's what Professor Harebrained said. Lord Van Zykes is from a family with noble blood. Oh gosh! It was the fifth victim that led to the professor's arrest. Last of the killer's prey was a young noble by the name of Clint von Zykes. No, I don't believe it. Von Zykes, his brother? I would presume brother, since it's supposed to be young, and we saw that painting. Yeah, I'm sure you could piece together the rest for yourself. In wake of his older brother's murder, the young Barak pursued a career as a prosecutor, and eventually became the Reaper we know today. I had no idea Von Zykes had such a tragic past. Well, I'm afraid that's all I can say on the matter, for the time being at least. After all, I have work to do. As a waxwork exhibit. I'm afraid I shall have to excuse myself as well. Oh, yes, of course. It's been a pleasure, thank you. Well, none of the predicted scenarios I've been analyzing involved you coming to visit me here. It's been too long, it really has. I'm delighted to see you, Barak. It has been 10 years, and here we are, meeting in prison of all places. I can't forgive myself what happened to Mr. Aspen, I just can't. I still can't believe it could happen. Tomorrow the court will decide. Yes. I have a young Eastern man acting in my defense. He seems reliable enough, though. If it was an accident, a terrible accident, he assures me he can prove it. I must warn you, however. Oh, I know, I've heard already. You're going to be prosecuting, aren't you? Yes. Since I returned to England, I've heard lots of stories. Barak, are you really... What? Never mind. I know that you have my best interests at heart. My friend is on trial. I wouldn't entrust it to anybody else. Of course, I fully understand. Thank you, Barak. Until tomorrow, then. I'll see you in court. This means the painting in Barak von Zykes' room was not a depiction of himself, it was a depiction of his brother. That's also why he refused to mention who it was, because he didn't want to have to reflect on that. October 23rd, 8:52 a.m. The Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. I can't believe it's been 6 months since I was last allowed to work in court. And now here I am, back at the Old Bailey. Mr. Naruto. Good morning, Professor Harebrained. I don't understand, it doesn't make any sense. The atmospheric pressure in here is off the charts. I've never felt anything like it. It's crushing me. I feel it every time I'm in here, that gravity. Well, it is Britain's highest court. Are you telling me it's fitted with some kind of device that can actually control the air pressure? I think it's probably all in the mind. Yes, well, you won't let me down, will you, Mr. Harlan? I'm counting on you in today's trial to save my life. To save the secret of my super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine from being made public. Yes, I understand. I know what I have to do. I have to establish the explosion 2 days ago was nothing more than an unfortunate accident. Well, I'm sure there's nothing to worry about, really. Justice will prevail. My conversations, Mr. Naruto, you appear to have been lumbered in the most intense case here. Ah, Mr. Sholmes. I didn't expect you to see here. I didn't expect to see you here, I mean. That was very mean, Runo, leaving me all alone with Hurley. It took me at least an hour to wake him. Ah, oh. Is it? Are you? Sherlock Sholmes! Indeed, sir, I am he. Sherlock Sholmes. Oh, I've heard all about your exploits, even whilst visiting in Germany. Ah, yes. Ah, yes, Rand's magazine that sail in Germany too. This month's installment was sublime. Reduction on the adventure of Silver Blaze was wonderful. Ah, yes, a memorable case. Ah, yes, a memorable case indeed. It concerned a snake, I seem to recall. No, that was the speckled band. Well, thank you for coming. I do appreciate your support. I'm sorry to disappoint you, my dear fellow, but I'm afraid I can't stay. Oh, I have urgent business at Madame Tuspel's. You mean your waxwork job again? Oh, no, the waxwork subduction, of course. Madame has engaged my services. Ah, so you're trying to get to the bottom of that ransom note, are you? This week's wages depend on it, as does the safe return of the waxwork, naturally. As such, I intend to give my undivided attention. Oh well, never mind, I understand. Of course, with my skills of observation and reasoning, resolving the matter will be as easy as proverbial pie. I shall return forthwith. Or until I solve the case, I shall have no money to afford the pie of any description. Ooh, then you must absolutely give it your full attention, Hurley. Quite, Iris, quite. But with life riddled with irony, you know. Whenever I give something my full attention, I have quite insatiable desire for a pie. Yeah. I guess you could say I'm one of those detectives who is only able to... Wait, how did that joke go? I know someone once made a joke about how a detective can only function if they're in the presence of a pie, so all rhymes had to be made within walking distance of a pie shop or something silly like that. I'll have to look it up later. One of the universe's intractable mysteries, you might say. Oh yes, quite definitely, absolutely, I totally understand. Is someone a little starstruck? I wish the very best of luck, Professor Hairbrain. Oh, why thank you. Before I depart, Mr. Naruto, a word in your ear, if you please. Sure, what's this about? As you have remarkably little grounding of science, I feel I have to inform you. As compelling as the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis hypothesis may be, the practical implementation, such as attempted by the professor at Great Exposition, is quite impossible. Oh, but the professor of the demonstration was a success. Yes, it appears fervently believes it was. I read Professor Bunnybrain's paper about it too, Reno, and I have to say, I'm sure it can't be done. It could barely be done theoretically, let alone practically. So he is completely barking up the wrong tree. How can an experiment that had no possibility of succeeding, in fact succeed? That's contradictory. And that contradiction will be at the heart of the trial, I've no doubt. What's that supposed to mean? Now, I must hurry along. I wish the best of luck, my dear fellow. See you later, Hurley. I imagine Suzato is going to return in time for the finale, but we have at least this case and maybe another one before she does. So, well, you're on your own today, Runo, but chin up, you can do it. Oh, what about you, Iris? No, I'm afraid I can't help. I have something I need to do. I see. It's gonna be a big surprise for you when you find out what it is. Ah, that sounds ominous. Counsel for the defense and the defendant. Court is about to be in session. Make your way to the courtroom at once. We're on our way. An experiment the laws of science can't possibly succeed, and a scientist convinced you that it did. That's the riddle you have to unlock here, Rhinosuke. That's the key to this case. The 23rd of October, 9:10 a.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. We're sitting today for the public trial of Professor Albert Hairbrain. I will now call upon the counsels of the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. I'm 6 months out of practice, and what's more, I'm without Suzato-san today. Just my imagination, or does the air in here feel even more oppressive than usual? So, I must say I recollect the victim of this case all too well, Mr. Odie Osmond. Mr. Osmond was known as a financier, though that was merely a front for his diverse criminal activities. It was only a month ago the man appeared in court prosecuted by you, Lord Van Zykes, but the jury unanimously found him not guilty. Because every member of the jury had been bribed by the sound of it. Those powerful London criminals were prepared to go to extreme lengths to keep their freedom. But 2 days ago, on the 21st of October, Mr. Osmond met his end. Work of the Reaper, was it? If that is how your lordship would describe divine retribution. But the fact remains that Mr. Osmond's death was a direct result of the actions of the accused, Professor Harebrain. Very well, then. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have been selected at random to represent the will of the people. Are the 6 of you ready to perform your societal duty? I'm most gratified to have been selected to carry out this important civic duty, my lord. To have a man's fate in the palm of one's hand. Oh gosh, oh golly, it sends shivers down my spine. That magician guy. Science experiments, magic, conjuring tricks, all are nothing more than courtroom trials, all are nothing more than performances. Any spurious scholar that defiles the reputation of science deserves to hang. And we have to, this one's set on both sides of the fence and settle on one. That's it, isn't it? Wasn't like this in my day, wasn't like this at all. That's the police killer Automole lookalike. Again. And he's as exhausted as ever, it seems. Now, as I'm sure you all aware, the incident where the Judge Day tragically took place at the Great Exposition shortly after its opening. Though the death toll could have been far worse, with the exception of the victim, and no one was killed. Nevertheless, the dream of the science being exhibited rapidly turned to a nightmare for the spectators. A tragic turn of events, and as such, the eyes of all London, no, the whole world will be on this trial. It is our duty to reach a swift and just conclusion, I feel. So, your opening statement, please, Lord Van Zykes. At the heart of this incident is technology never demonstrated before anywhere in the world. One of science's latest developments, I take it. The government is keen to capitalize on the Great Exhibition to improve Britain's technological advantages. The technology being demonstrated by the accused was described as super high voltage instantaneous kinesis. Oh goodness. It's designed to disassemble human subjects using extremely high voltage electricity and beam them instantly to another location where they are subsequently reassembled. Is such a thing even with the realms of possibility? Well, I don't believe it, that's for sure. Disassembling people with electricity? My goodness, how shocking! Get it? Ah, the whole idea is absurd. The hypothesis would never stand up to scrutiny. Sir, I believe you are a fellow of the Royal Society, are you not? An expert in your field? I am. My word on the matter can be considered final. Instantaneous kinesis is popping up. So this is expert and Mr. Sholmes are in agreement. It is impossible. What's the prosecution's view on the matter? The prosecution would assert that the accused's instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a success. What? You what? Order. The professor's hypothesis is currently under investigation by the British government. If it is deemed to have merit, a substantial research grant would have been made available. The accused made use of the invention built on his new hypothesis to take Mr. Osmond's life, in order to be the sole benefactor of the grant. Oh, but, this disastrous demonstration was no accident. It was carefully designed from the outset to end the life of the victim. Thank you, Lord Van Zykes. Prosecution's stance is clear, but you will now bring forth witnesses to substantiate your claims. Gladly, my lord. Bailiff, show the first witness to the stand. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at the Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. I was on duty at the demonstration on the day in question and in charge of the following investigation. Albert Harebrain, a scientist. You were born in England, but have been carrying out research in Germany in recent years, is that correct? Yes, that's right. After graduating from university here in Britain, I went to work in Germany. I made an amazing discovery. That which brought me back, I had to demonstrate my incredible hypothesis, the Great Exhibition. Well, you demonstrated. It was incredible, alright? An incredible explosion. The science was a success. The instantaneous kinesis worked. Everyone saw it, they must have done. Yes, it was a terrible accident, but the demonstration was a success. Well, that much is undeniable, as shown in the photograph taken by the forensic investigation team. This was taken inside the crystal tower, I take it? The centerpiece of the exhibition, no less. That's right, my lord. Seems the victim rammed straight into it. I see. Very well, submit the photograph as evidence, please. As the court's heard, the victim of the incident was Mr. Odie Asman. There have been a number of allegations made against the man, but put them aside for the time being. He was the man who financed the research of the experiment and demonstration itself. I see. To summarize the situation, the defense accused of taking the life of a man who funded his work. Would that be correct? Exactly. But couldn't it be that the explosion was caused by some malfunction in the apparatus used for the demonstration? That's right, that must be it. My splendid machine, my poor, splendid machine. You saw it yesterday, didn't you? We can't even examine the wreckage thanks to the Special Disposition for the Scientific Equipment Act. What? The wreckage? The wreckage? But that being the case, how can the facts be established? How can it possibly be determined whether this was an accident or a deliberate malicious act? Extremely simply, my lord. I beg your pardon? Isn't that right, witness? Oh, what? I'm sorry, me? No, your neighbor. Yes, sir. It was murder, plain and simple. Anyone could say that with complete certainty. What? How can he possibly say that? Thank you, Inspector. I think we'd better proceed to the formal testimony. You will explain to the court on what grounds you claim the experiment to have been a front for murder. Witness testimony. A front for murder. The corpse went crashing into the crystal tower has a broken neck. I made a minor miscalculation in the angle of the beam projection, that's all. That was my mistake. But the post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound. There was a lesion in the chest where he'd clearly been stabbed by another sharp object right in the heart. So the victim was killed before he went anywhere. This fellow is the only one who could have done it. An extraordinary business. In addition to suffering a broken neck, the victim was stabbed in the heart. Information I would really like to have heard from someone other than the judge. The coroner says death would have been all but instant from a wound like that. You could say, in fact, that the victim was killed twice by the accused. No, that couldn't be further from the truth. I've heard the experiment plan document that's submitted to the security team. The victim stood in inside something called the birdcage, ready to be beamed instantly. The second level of the crystal tower, about 25 yards away. The experiment did not go according to plan, however. As the machine was put into operation, there was a large explosion. blast caused the beam transmitter to point higher than intended. Accordingly, the kinesis results in the birdcage materializing in midair, from where it subsequently fell, crashing through the glass of the Crystal Tower's large round window. My word. One assumes the victim's neck was broken upon impact with the tower, then. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen. The machine was just too powerful. But honestly, really, I swear, it was just an accident, terrible accident. Unfortunately, that excuse cannot save you. No, not considering the shot murder weapon that pierced the victim's heart. What murder weapon? What are you saying? This is the autopsy report reported by the coroner. The prosecution would like it entered the court record. Your request is granted, counsel. I was there in person, you know. I saw the whole ludicrous performance. The only other person on stage as Mr. Asman was that disgraceful excuse of a scientist. Then really, by all accounts, it must have been him. Autopsy report. Here's the heart inflicted by a sharp implement. The crossbow must have shot him then. A broken additional, most likely impact after a sudden fall of a considerable height. I don't think otherwise, really. Alright, very well, counsel of the defense. Proceed with the cross-examination, please. Oh, yes, my lord. I need to focus here. It's been a while. Cross-examination.
Hold it!
Corpse that crashed through the Crystal Tower, broken neck. Are you suggesting it's because he fell from a considerable height, then? Exactly. Which highlights something else about this whole business. What's that? The fact that the instantaneous kinesis itself was a success. Well, it could have just been sent flying through an explosion in the normal way. After the explosion, the cage that fell inside suddenly appeared out of nowhere in midair. So although the experiment ended in a disaster, the so-called instantaneous kinesis did actually occur. Remind us, Professor, what was the cause of the fatal disaster? I made a minor calculation of the angle of the beam projection, that's all.
Hold it!
So the angle projection is critical, is it? And you calculated it yourself personally? Absolutely. The calculation is far too complicated for anyone except for myself to carry out. Only you got it wrong, didn't you? Yes, that's right. That's the point. The calculation is so complicated, even I could make a mistake. Do people fall for that brazen confidence? I should try it. I took into account the subject's height and weight, the wind direction, the ambient temperature. I considered every possible variable, so I just don't understand how this could have happened. And obviously, then you had to include the weight of the clothes Mr. Asman was wearing at the time as well. Crackling comets. The answer should have been 3. So much for safety first. 3 must be for safety third. The post-mortem examination revealed another injury, a fatal wound.
Hold it!
Another fatal injury, say. But that doesn't make any sense. I didn't think I'd have to spell this out, but here we go. Just because there were 2 fatal wounds doesn't mean I'm saying the victim had 2 lives to lose, does it? 2 right? Obviously, at first, we thought the bloke had died due to the spine snapping in half as well. But you're saying that's not the case? You'll get your answer once I finish my fish and chips. If you don't keep butting in every few seconds. But we all know that's a bottomless bag. The victim plummeted 30 feet to a glass tower. It'd be reasonable to assume that's the cause of death. Right, that's what we all thought. But it was a red herring, wasn't it? There was a lesion in the chest where he'd clearly been stabbed by something sharp right in the heart. The defense knew nothing of this crucial information. The prosecution received this report from the forensic investigation team only this morning. That was the first we knew of it as well. I can only apologize for the impossibility of informing the defense. Sarcastic and sincere, thanks. So what was the nature of this sharp object exactly? Among the accused tools were in use at the demonstration. One is of particular interest. This. Ah, yes, that appeared to be some kind of screwdriver, wouldn't it? Ah, there he is. My trusty little companion, Andrew. Andrew, of course. Andrew Adrians. Ah, do you know each other already? He's one of my dear friends. I like all my tools. I've named them all, you know. We're all one big happy family. Andrew's my flathead screwdriver, of course. His brother Michael is a crosshead. Well, that appear your beloved Andrew has a red stain on his shank. Ah, that isn't... It's blood, beyond all reasonable doubt. Oh, and that's not all. The long, sharp shape of this Andrew fellow is completely consistent with the victim's wound. What? Order. The court will enter this friend of the defendant as evidence. This is one of Professor Hairbrain's tools, the murder weapon. Great. This is blood, and Mr. Asmon's no doubt. Is this a problem? The problem with looking at murder weapons? I've seen this unusually shaped handle before. It's the same screwdriver that was lodged in the grill on the floor of the kinesis machine, which could be important information, so I should definitely make a note of it. It looks like layers of thick canvas with a thick rubber lining of sorts. I've never seen anything like it before, but applying Mr. Sholm's methods, you might deduce it was part of a raincoat worn by someone who really didn't want to get wet. And the charring must have occurred when the person was struck by lightning. Or maybe not.
Objection!
Oh, come on, how is this not a good... that last statement would seem to be at odds somehow with the evidence. Is your task counsel explain this somehow as the court, not the other way around? That just seemed to jar, though, don't you think? What I think is that this whole exchange has been extremely jarring, yes. Perhaps I need to reconsider this. Oh, I forgot to press him, that's why. On what grounds do you have for saying that? Ah, do you really need to ask? There are only two people on that public experimentation stage in front of the whole crowd. The victim, Mr. Odie Osmond, and the accused, Professor Hairbrain. We know for certain that before the experiment, the victim was alive. That's right, saw with my own eyes. Furthermore, following the explosion in the kinesis, nobody went anywhere near the body. In other words, only someone else on stage with the victim could have possibly done it.
Excuse me!
Excuse me? Professor Hairbrain, do you have some information that may be relevant here? Professor! Sorry. I was calculating the coefficient, and the witness stand is the best place for that. It seems as though you might have something to say about Inspector Gregson's last remark. Yes, that's right, of course. He said that nobody else possibly could have done it, didn't he? Yeah, that's right. Who else could have stabbed the victim, eh? I don't know, but there's no way I could possibly have stabbed Mr. Asmond as you say. Explain, please, Professor. Of course, cold-hearted policemen may not be aware, I suppose. But humans are warm-blooded mammals with the blood running continuously through their veins. I had heard. Then surely you see, if I'd plunged this thing the size of Andrew into the man's chest, the whole stage would have been a bloodbath. No, blood swimming pool. But thousands of Londoners were watching me at the time. and yet not one of them claims to have seen a swimming pool of blood. Well, no, I suppose not. You see, there's not one. True, I didn't see anything like that. Well done, Professor, that's a great counter-argument. Order, order. Pray forgive the discourtesy if I savor a drop of my hollowed chalice to accompany my old friend's oddity. Here's to you, Albert. Oh, you're too kind, Barak. I'm not really attached with you. No, you're not. No. You've neglected to mention one crucial possibility. A particular situation in which very little bleeding would have resulted from a stab wound. Ah, of course. Inspector, enlighten the court, please. Yes, sir. Where are they going with this? Very well, you will amend your formal testimony now, Inspector Gregson. The weapon the victim was stabbed with must have been left in his body while he was beamed through the air.
Hold it!
Why would you think that, Inspector? With any wound, it's only when you pull the weapon out that profuse bleeding occurs. While it's still lodged in the body, it acts as a stopper of sorts, for want of a better word. I see. You don't need a medical degree to be aware of this fact. It is common knowledge for any investigator. Where's Suzato-san when you need her? If you ask me, this bloke masked what he was doing from view with his body before stabbing Asmund in the chest. Then he beamed the victim off stage with a fancy device, the screwdriver still where he planted it. I would never do such a thing. Not with my precious tools, I would never use them for such dirty work. You only use tools for their intended purpose. That's common knowledge for any scientist. But the fact remains, though, the lack of blood at the scene can be easily explained, as the prosecution's demonstrated. So, that's all the testimony I have to work with. I had no idea the victim had been stabbed. That changes everything. Did Von Zykes keep that to himself until now on purpose to gain the advantage? Well, I suppose all I can do is press these witnesses for as much new information as possible. This is not possible because of the screwdriver.
Objection!
It was found in the machine still, so it couldn't have been there. You say that while the weapon remains in the body, there's very little bleeding. Is that unequivocal? Is that unequivocal? Look, there was no blood on the experimentation stage, even though that's where the fellow was stabbed. The only explanation for that is if the screwdriver was still in his body, stopping any heavy bleeding. It's common medical knowledge, my learned friend, even on your side of the world. Yes, well, about the screwdriver. The thing is, we actually saw it at the scene ourselves on the experimentation stage. What? It was on the floor by the wreckage of the machine, poking through the metal grill. I went to pick it up, but the detective here stopped me. Isn't that right, Inspector Gregson? Well, now that you mention it, yes. Inspector, are we to understand that you permitted the defense counsel to investigate? That you contravened the special dispensation for scientific equipment act? No, not at all. I wouldn't do that. I just let him look, nothing more. It's very clear, he wasn't to touch a thing. Yes, that is correct. The screwdriver in plain sight on the stage. But it shouldn't have been, should it? What are you getting at? If this tool had been in the victim's body when the victim was beamed away by the machine, then it shouldn't have still been on the stage. That's right. It should have been beamed across the crystal tower along with Mr. Asmund, and been still lodged in the victim's chest. Order, order. How do you explain this, Inspector? I don't. It looks as though everything the victim had on his person was moved away with him when he was beamed. If the screwdriver was still in his chest when the instantaneous kinesis occurred, obviously that should have been beamed to the destination as well. What's this? This is a strange situation. Even though people are saying this instantaneous kinesis is a scientific impossibility, we're still basing arguments around the assumption that it did actually take place. Alright, time to tighten the screws here. My lord? If the prosecution is unable to explain this inconsistency in the argument, we can only conclude the testimony given in support cannot be relied upon. Lord Van Zykes is stumped too. Do you have something to say, witness? Yes, I knew it. It bears out. The equations hold. Mr. Naruhodo, don't worry. About what? But without delving into the details, there's no inconsistency. What do you mean? Even if Andrew had been lodged in Mr. Asmund's chest, my trusty tool wouldn't have moved. Andrew remained on the stage consistent with my calculations. What do you mean? Ow, my face! It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation. Just when I'd found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument, and even Von Zykes himself didn't know. Scientists. Very well, the defendant will testify again and provide us with a scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold. In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. Inconsistency made. To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states that kinesis cannot transport metal, though, hence the metal weapon should have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Asmund was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. So the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is that based upon this hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis. So in other words, since the screwdriver is made out of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest, its subsequent delivery on the stage by the victim being found elsewhere is not an inconsistency. And therefore, Professor Albert Harebrain could still have been the killer. My great hypothesis holds, you see. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject with wood for that very reason. I was not addressing you, witness. Professor Harebrain... yes? Whose side are you on here? I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo, no. My only interest lies upon upholding my hypothesis. I am a scientist, after all. Is he working for us or against us? Sheesh. Very hard to tell. Let us see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Japanese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo. Cross-examination. The inconsistency explained.
Hold it!
And yet, I'm still the hypothesis, gathering data from my research, and yet your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. And no scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those are the words of a certain scientist I hold in very high esteem. But you do realize that disproving my argument puts you at a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should strive to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know. Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is the scientist? I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know. It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind. You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. Scatterbrain forgets even my name at times. So Van Zykes really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over. My hypothesis states it cannot transport metal.
Hold it!
Your hypothesis states it, so it isn't proven then. No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it's widely known that metals can't be decomposed by electrolysis. Of course, so I am right. It's clearly my hypothesis is clearly correct. What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy? It's the whole reason the birdcage is made of wood, you see. Sorry, the birdcage? Yes, that's what I call the C. obtusa cage in which Mr. Asman was placed for the kinesis. Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does seem to be made of a timber of some sort. I'll thank you not to refer to it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship. In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by the instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on the stage if it was made of metal, correct? Yes, that's it. Yes, yes, yes. It all fits perfectly within the mathematical model. Well, the ultimate conclusion, then, is the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict a fatal injury on the victim, is it not? Ah. Ah, indeed, sir. Someone beam me out of this nightmare. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Otto isn't an inconsistency at all.
Hold it!
You seem to be pleased by that. Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruto. Are you not pleased? No. Oh, I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Asman losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse, I know that. No, you're quite right. Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Asman? Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I'd only met him 2 or 3 times. We only ever discussed my hypothesis, the project, and the research grant, of course. Mr. Asman was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible.
Hold it!
So how did you come to know Mr. Asman in the first place? A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. That's a scientific journal? Good gracious! I should need new spectacles! I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise, but at the time, I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered-down water out of a tiny little glass. But Mr. Asman read the paper and came to visit me at my tiny little laboratory. And offered you money to help fund your work. Exactly, that's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things, Mr. Asman provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the 3 of us produced that fantastic machine together. The machine you brought to the Great Exposition to demonstrate, correct? We had to apply it to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed in the exhibit, I think. I didn't understand that side of things. Mr. Asman took care of all of it. He's a wonderful man. Really, I owe him everything. Now I have a duty to protect the machine that we built together. When you say you built the machine together, does that mean you were involved in its construction? Yes. Well, not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer. Little remains of your creation now, though. Following the explosion, repair work no doubt will be impossible. Yes, I realize that. But still, if someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. Mr. Asman and I toiled over the machine for so long, put our heart and souls into it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because what happened was an accident. That's the extent of the testimony, then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven he could have been the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder, what if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? This one's really tricky. It doesn't look like there's anything in here that stands out especially.
Hold it!
Maybe his glasses count as metal?
Objection!
Yeah, his glasses have some metal in them. Professor Hairbrain, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis due to the machine you made. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on, exactly correct. In that case, I'd ask you to have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see Mr. Asman wearing a pair of spectacles with metal rim. Metal? No! Metal can't... That's not... Metal? No! We've already established the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found at the stage. However, if your hypothesis is correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal rim glasses would be found in the same place. My hypothesis... Professor Hairbrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Order. Counsel, what is the implication of this? If on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible the victim was killed somewhere other than on the stage, and in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound. I proved it. The experiment. It was proof of all my work. If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society. Yes, juror number 4. Go ahead. As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. A fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science. What? Great Scott, are you suggesting my science is suspect? It's just been disproved, hasn't it, in front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you this man is a heel, a blunder, a fraud. I say the records of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. Oh no, never. The machine's essence of my entire hypothesis is protected by the Special Disabilities for Scientific Equipment Act. And what the devil was the best act all about? Who made up such a daft rule? I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? Raise an objection.
Objection!
Professor Hairbrain has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public? You should have absolutely no reason to do such a thing. He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed. Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? 10 pounds? You're an order of magnitude out, madam. 500 pounds a year. Oh, you could live ants on that for years. Society's noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently. Plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plain no motive for murder, I assure you. Oh, no, I haven't deceived anyone. Least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound, the science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection!
No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower, which means that the experiment was a success. Ah, Barak. And therefore, the only person who could possibly have committed this murder is the accused. Ah, Barak. Where is this heading? I genuinely have no idea. My lord, if I may. Yes, Lord Van Zykes. The prosecution would like to summon new witnesses to the stand. New witnesses will be the nature of their involvement. They were spectators of the demonstration after the exhibition, who are occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses. Very well, the court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from the eyewitnesses to the incident. The prosecution's stance is clear. The experiment was no... The accused killed the financier victim on the public stage before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend. Yes. It is time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. But where does that leave me? We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution prepares new witnesses to take the stand. As you wish, my lord. Good, in that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes. I guess this seems like a good time to call it. Yep, to be continued. Bit over 2 hours, not bad. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more here going on than we realize, and I think the spectators may very well be involved. After all, we saw the crossbow in a place where the spectators would likely have been standing. And of course, we need the evidence to prove that his hypothesis didn't actually work. Sorry, you need to grab a drink here. Throat was really feeling dry. But I guess that'll be all for tonight. Alright, thank you for watching. Hope you had a good time. I save my VODs for as long as Twitch allows, so if you want to catch up on these, you can check them there. Or if you want to check some of my older VODs, I have a link to my YouTube channel on my About page. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.